Are we finally buying into the Dallas Cowboys? The Cowboys have narrowly defeated the Seattle Seahawks on Thursday Night Football, which I will say, Mark, the best Thursday Night Football game of the
Awesome
season.
game.
We finally got
Fantastic
some
game.
actually back and forth. I think it was like midway through the third quarter, they put up the stat that there hadn't been a punt the whole game. And I was like, all right, well, I'm all in for this. I don't even know if there ended up being more than one or two the whole game. But yeah, it was a fascinating watch. But of course, the Dallas Cowboys at the top of conversation as they won, despite seemingly being outmatched for a good portion of the game. Dallas does come back and win it 41-35 over the Seattle Seahawks. Your instant thoughts on this one, and have you started to maybe lean a little bit more towards Dallas's way in terms of the standings, Super Bowl playing, their projections for the playoffs, etc.?
My instant thought was shout out to DK Metcalf for cashing me that first touchdown bet. That was sick.
Nice.
Thank you, DK.
Nice. It was quick.
And I will say his sign language celebration was awesome. Like, how cool is that? To learn sign language for the celebration.
That is really funny that that he's been learning ASL so that he doesn't get fined. That's cool.
Baller. Like, what a move. I love it. I love it. So that's my instant reaction. My other reaction to this was, earlier in the season, so much of our discord about the Cowboys was, man, if their defense doesn't ball out, they really struggle to win games, right? Like that was that Arizona Cardinal loss. The defense just didn't ball out and the offense sputtered. I will say, Dan, even though I'm not impressed with their wins because they're beating up cupcakes over the last four, the New York Giants, Washington, and some of these blowout wins post that Eagles loss, their last loss on a 4-game win streak now. They are offensively, because they're going up against poor teams, they're really finding themselves offensively. I mean, they are playing really elite level offensive football. Now, will that continue? Are they peaking too early? All of these things are questions we have to ask. Is just focusing on the game itself. I give them a lot of credit for kind of taking the best punch. I mean, Seattle was throwing haymakers. You know what I mean? Like they were going all out. Seattle's been on a 2-game losing streak. Now it's a 3-game losing streak. They have 2 really insane games coming on up with the Niners and the Eagles. The Seahawks could be going from 6-3 to 6-8 in the blink of an eye. So they threw the kitchen sink at Dallas, and Dallas responded. They didn't back down in that game. So there's a lot to like if you're Dallas. And then it gets to the point where I say to myself, I'm still not buying the Dallas Cowboys. They have a 4-game stretch coming up here. 5 games remaining, 4-game stretch. If Dallas can find a way to go 3-1, 4-0 through this stretch, well, then you have to consider Dallas to be not only a Super Bowl contender, but a Super Bowl favorite. Home against the Eagles, at the Bills, at Miami, home against the Lions. If they go 3-1 and 4 or 4-0 in that stretch, then they're the favorites to win the Super Bowl going into the final week of the regular season. And I'll admit, I was wrong. I'm just not going to hold my breath yet. That is a murderer's row, really, really important 4-game stretch for them. And Dallas Cowboys could go quickly, as quickly as Seattle went from 6-3 to probably 6-8. Dallas could quickly go from 9-3 to 9-7 in the blink of an eye in the NFL. I think overall my thoughts on this, and my final pitch I'll toss to you was last night I went to bed and be like, that was a really fun game. That was awesome. But deep down in my gut, it felt like I was watching 2 wild card teams battle in a really fun way because they're kind of evenly matched, and neither of them are real legitimate threats as of this morning to actually playing in an NFC championship game. Dallas has an opportunity, and Seattle both have opportunities in front of them because Seattle's schedule at Niners, at Eagles, with 2, some really important games coming up to change the narrative. But this morning, Friday, December 1st, feels like we were watching 2 wild card teams battling out in what would have been a really fun first round playoff game.
It also felt like both teams were coming in very motivated to either buck a narrative or to, continue on a course or correct. The Seattle was, riding this losing streak and trying to get out from under it. They were obviously, as you mentioned, kind of taking shots and a little bit more risks, kind of a backs against the wall, devil may care attitude coming into this game, in a hostile environment. Dallas, on the other hand, riding a winning streak, but there's constantly been the narrative of them not beating good teams. And, they put it up even during the game that the record of their wins, or the combined record of the opponents in their wins, was just over 300, just a brutal stretch, and we've mentioned that on the show numerous times. So Dallas seemed to be motivated to say, no, we can beat a team that's at least 500 and maybe a little bit more talented. So both teams did seem to kind of come out guns a-blazing, and we saw that early on with the no punts. Like the offenses on both sides were clicking, defenses were seeming to be a little bit of a step slow, and it really ended up being the defense of the Dallas Cowboys that just came through in the end. Some really bad miscues by Seattle late in this game, especially that final drive where Seattle legitimately had an opportunity there.
Didn't love leaving Micah Parsons.
Micah Parsons being completely left unblocked on the final attempt on fourth down. It was stuff like that was just a pretty rough way to end it. So yeah, the miscues that Dallas capitalized on were Seattle's downfall, and some missed opportunities by some of the receivers as well. Tyler Lockett had a a bad drop.
Jackson Smith and Jigba, I think, got robbed of a touchdown. They did end up scoring a touchdown on that drive to DK, but I thought that was a catch, and he really looks like he's coming alive. He had the wrist injury, and he's really starting to turn into form. He reminds me a little bit of like a DJ Moore type receiver. He's a little smaller, and maybe he just looks smaller because you watch DK and then they cut to Jackson Smith and Jigba, but he is a shifty hips wide receiver that seems to love kind of battling through contact.
He's very tough and a route running technician. So that's kind of like a dangerous combo, because usually the great route runners are shifty, but they can't take the huge blows. But can I just say something on that real quick? I don't want to divert too much, but that rule has come up, over the years, and it always brings me back to the Jesse James catch that was ruled not a catch in the AFC Championship game for the Steelers that changed the course of in my opinion that entire season, but really the franchise, because that was as close as they got.
They haven't had a playoff win post that loss, I think, right?
Yeah, and so that has course corrected Pittsburgh for many years, but I think that it's a flawed rule that needs to be readdressed, because in my view, completing a catch shouldn't. The fact that a ball moves when it touches the ground shouldn't, in my view, be a determination of whether the catch was complete, because you could have a solid grasp on the ball and the ground will maybe push it into you 5 inches, and that's considered moving the football. Well, you still had control of that. I think they need to find a better way of wording that, because that's ultimately what they ruled against Jesse James, and that seems to be ultimately what they ruled against Smith and
when
Jigba.
Football was invented 100+ years ago, they didn't have the cameras that we do now. You can find movement on any play. It's like we could find holding on any play. And to me, the key is his hand was under it, right? And his hand had it. As he went down, the tip of the ball did touch the ground, but his body and hands still had it. It's not like it was the ground and his body that pinned the ball.
That helped him catch it.
His hand was there. And so, we don't have to totally get off the weeds. I'm with you. I like, to me, that's one of those where it's like, dude, that's a catch. Like, that guy made a great play and the ground was there. But the ground caused the movement, not it was moving and then the ground secured it. Cause that's the other thing, right? It's it's moving. And then when he hits the ground, now it's tight. Well, that's the ground completing the catch for you, versus this is he completed the catch, but as he's running at full speed, falling to the ground, diving, the ball, it shifts when it hits the ground. Can I ask you, Dan, really quickly? We'll go Seattle and then Dallas. Seattle at Niners, home against the Eagles, and then 3 games home against the Titans, home against Pittsburgh, at Arizona. They're 6-6, 5 games remaining. Your gut feeling, can Seattle get to that 9-10 win mark and make the playoffs?
I don't think they can get to 10 wins. And I know it's
10
now we're talking about, 5 remaining weeks. I know that the road gets narrow and that we're talking about a 1-game difference. I think they'll get to 9. But I think at this point of the season, 1-game difference is a big swing, right? And so I think they can get to 9. I can't go the extra step because I think I'm already giving them the benefit of the doubt of beating like Pittsburgh,
Yeah.
or because I'm basically giving them Arizona, right?
Give
And
them
I'm
Arizona, give them the Titans.
Giving them the Titans, and then I'll say they'll win one of the remaining 3.
One of the 3, Niners,
And
Eagles,
likely
Pittsburgh.
But
Yeah.
then that means they go 3-0 to end the season, and that's kind of tough too. So there's no way they beat the Eagles. So I don't know. I mean,
well, so
tough.
I'm with you. I'm with you a little bit. I will say that Eagles game was the first ever Monday Night Football flex. They got flexed to, it was supposed to be Patriots and Chiefs Monday Night Football. They flexed it to be Seattle, Philadelphia. Seattle just played really well on prime time. Maybe they get a chance to avenge it. I'm with you. I see them as a 9-win team. I like the way they played last night. I'm not sure they don't sneak a win against the 49ers next week. They just played the Niners. The Niners now have like their Super Bowl, right? This weekend. We'll talk about that here in a second. Maybe they can catch the Niners, slipping a little bit, especially if the Niners beat the Eagles. Little hangover from a big win. Like Seattle comes to town, everything on the line. So I'm with you. I think they win one of those 3 versus the Niners, Eagles, and Pittsburgh, and then they beat the Tennessee Titans and Arizona. Now, I think they're a 9-win team, and I think they're in the playoffs. Like 9 wins in the NFC could get you the 6th seed. It might not even be the 7th seed.
Yeah.
So
I think they're a playoff team still.
Yeah, I agree. Dan, on the other side, Dallas, 9-3. They are Eagles, home against the Eagles, at the Bills, at Miami, home against the Lions, at Washington. I've been a firm supporter, and I've been very adamant about the Dallas Cowboys will be a 10-win team. They're going to go 4-1 down the stretch here. I'm wavering on that a tiny bit because they've looked so good offensively. I'm going to stick with it and say they lose 4 in a row, beat Washington to win and get to 10 wins, and probably lock up the 5 seed as the number 1 wild card, especially with the tiebreaker over Seattle. I'm going to stick with that. But you convinced me I'm wrong there, or do you feel like I'm right?
I feel like they could get. I think they lose to the Eagles, so I think that's a win for Philadelphia, and I feel like they're better than the Lions right now. I would put just as a complete team. I like the Lions more. I'll root for the Lions all day over the Dallas Cowboys. I think the Dallas is better team. The one that I think they for sure beat the Commanders in the final week of the season, right? So that's 1 win. They're already at 9. They're already at 10. And I think they win in Buffalo. I think that's a game that they can win. The problem is they're on the road those 2 weeks in potentially harsh climates, like
very different harsh climates.
And we know that Dallas performs much better on the turf. They were talking about that in the broadcast yesterday. They perform much better on turf than they do on grass. So that can obviously play a factor. Yeah. So they're in, potentially snow and rough conditions in Buffalo, and then have to go in hot and humid and potentially rainy in Miami. But I still think they win one of those 2 games because I think in terms of team wise and personnel, I don't have much faith in Buffalo. I just think they're a poor team. And yes, their offense can it could be very much like the game that we just watched, where it's like, the defenses aren't really playing very well, but the offenses keep torching each other. But Dallas's defense is so good that, if they have an opportunity to, match up well against and take away a Tyreek Hill or a Stephon Diggs, then we're talking about a game that's potentially winnable. And so I give them a win against Commanders, give them a win against either the Bills or the Dolphins.
So 11
wins. Get them to 11. I'll get them to 11. But
to me,
what would that put them? The 5 that would be
they're going to be behind the Eagles. Yeah, I mean that if the Eagles lose, which the game we're going to talk about here in a second, to the Niners, then next week Cowboys Eagles is huge. It's for the division because they'll be able to split, and if the Cowboys win, they'll both be 3-loss teams heading into the final stretch where they have each have 1 win head to head. So then it's, I think, strength of schedule or in division and all that stuff. So, I mean, the Cowboys still have it in front of them. They're going to be rooting for the Niners this week, obviously. Dan, the reason I wanted to bring this up and then we can move on is that I already heard things that were like frustrating to me today. Like you hear everyone in the national media talking about, like, are the Cowboys legit Super Bowl contenders? It's a lot like my point I've been making with the Bears, and like, why are we arguing so much about Drake May or Justin Fields or Williams right now.
Focus
the season's not over. We don't have the first pick yet. Like, we just don't have it yet. Like, the Cowboys have so much more to go, and we're going to learn so much about the Cowboys over the next 4 weeks. They could prove me wrong. They could prove the people who believe they're Super Bowl contenders right. But, like, it's not worth, like, spending the time on yet. And the other point, I mean, I heard Jason McIntyre today on The Herd, and I love Colin Cowherd. I love The Herd. And McIntyre's like, oh, the Seahawks are dead. Their next 2 games are Niners, Eagles. Yeah, well, if you only look at those next 2 games, then duh, you're going to say the Seahawks are dead. But if you look at the Seahawks total of 5 games, they absolutely could be a 9-win team if they play the way they played last night. That means they're in the playoffs. They're not dead yet. So I just think, like, it's important. One of the things I love about our show, and we're going to always try to do, is not ever just jump too hard on the small window. I love looking at the macro, not the micro. And I think with both these teams, it's a great example of Seattle slipping now, but at the end of the year, come the end of week 18, we could be looking at each other, and Dallas could be the 5 seed, Seattle's the 6 seed. They're right next to each other, and in the seeding, just as they were right here, 1 score away in a really entertaining game on Thursday Night Football.
Yeah, and I mean, to be clear too, Seattle had a backup, right tackle, 41-year-old Jason Peterson there that had to come into the game, and they were without Kenneth Walker, one of their best offensive weapons, and they still put up 35 points against what people are touting as one of the best defenses in the entire league. So there's something to be said for, like, health could be playing a factor in here as well. Some players are coming back for some of these teams, and that can make all the difference in the world. So you can't downplay the absence of certain individuals in a lot of these matchups. It's just like with, Joey Bosa being injured for the Chargers. It's like, that matters. The defense is already bad, and now you're compounding the problem. So it's stuff like that context is important when you're talking about even just next week, but projecting out for the next 4 weeks and beyond. We do want to talk about this intriguing matchup for this upcoming week, as you kind of alluded to, between the Eagles and the 49ers. Definitely the most anticipated one of this weekend slate. Not too many great matchups. I mean, Sunday night Chiefs at Packers will be cool just because it's kind of like a rustic feel.
3 games. Texans Broncos is interesting now because they're both alive. This game we're talking about Niners Eagles, and then Sunday Night Football is fascinating. I think Sunday Night Football is fascinating. I love the Chiefs. I think the Chiefs will blow out the Packers, but then this is the game. Eagles Niners is the game this week.
Yeah, and that'll be at the 4:25 Eastern time slot. So back-to-back really good games we're hoping for in the afternoon and evening. But currently the San Francisco 49ers on the road are favored by 3. Yeah, I do feel that San Francisco will keep this really tight, and I don't know if I would favor them. This is definitely, like, if you're betting, this is a game I personally would want to stay away from because I just don't feel comfortable enough. I could absolutely see San Francisco winning this game. I think they're extremely talented. If you're just going by who's the best quarterback, then it's Jalen Hurts and the Philadelphia Eagles to pick in this one. But that's what's so intriguing to me about this game, is I think they match up extremely well. I mean, what the Eagles have done well all season long, and it's what they did last year too, was dominating the trenches. They did it last year on both sides of the ball. This year it's been much more offensively. They've dominated along the line. So it's pairing up the best O-line against the best D-line. And that's what's really intriguing to me, is who's going to win that battle, because that's going to be who wins the game, in my view. Whoever runs the football better. But in terms of skill position players, both have great players, but I give the edge to the 49ers. I mean, gosh, they can do so many different things with Debo, with Brandon Ayuk, with Christian McCaffrey, with George Kittle. That's overpowering. And we've seen how rough the Eagles secondary has been, really the back 7 in totality. So I'm very intrigued. My gut tells me that the 49ers somehow find a way to win because the Eagles are just coming off of an emotional game. So that's where my gut goes. But I don't have a strong take either way, to be honest with you.
See, I love the idea of betting this game. I'm hammering the Eagles +3.
Okay. All right. So
I get the best team in the NFL at home and 3 points, like, all day. I'm eating. I'm feasting. Here's what, for me, I couldn't agree more. This is going to be such a great battle of the trenches. The Eagles, you make the argument, a lot of people make the argument, the Eagles' emotional game. if they were going to lose an emotional game, it was last week when Buffalo came out on hair on fire.
Well, that's what I was saying. They were coming off of an emotional game.
I know, and they still found a way to win that game. You know what I mean? Like that, like to me, I think they avoided the trap game. You know, they went Chiefs Monday Night Football, Bills at home, and then at home against the Niners. I just think at this point in time, I am not going to give up on the fact that I think Jalen Hurts will find a way to win a game. Like that's just the way he's been playing football this year. I think this one is going to be another one that's just a black and blue, beat each other up. I think it's lower scoring because I think in the red zone, both these defenses will show their teeth. And I think both offenses know the way to like control this game and to win this game is to dominate time of possession with long drives. Both teams are going to want 10, 11, 12 play, 65 plus yard drives to keep the other team's weapons on the sideline. I think Philly can do that more consistently because they have Jalen Hurts. If things break down, he himself is the 11th weapon on that Eagles offense. Brock Purdy's not. Like Brock Purdy is an incredible distributor of the football, absolutely, but he's not in and of itself a weapon. Jalen Hurts is. So I like the Eagles. I like the Eagles +3. I think the score is something along the lines of 24-17, 24-20. I think it's lower scoring than we think, but it doesn't mean it's not an entertaining game. I think it's a great game. And I think Jalen Hurts makes the plays he needs to make late to win the game.
Yeah, I guess I could be persuaded either way, but they're riding a 5-game winning streak right now. I think the Eagles are going to lose a game before the end of the season. I don't think they're running the table the rest of the way. I don't see them going 16-1. So it kind of puts me in a spot where I'm like, all right, what of these remaining games do I think the Eagles might stumble at? Is it now granted it's a home game, so that does, that's big for Philly. The road game against the Cowboys is certainly a game they could lose. I consider them a much better team. I think they win that game. And then it's Seattle, Giants twice, and the Cardinals. I feel like they win all those games fairly easily unless there's like a huge, it's any given Sunday, but that feels about as close of a sure thing as you can get is winning those final 4 games. So really it leaves me with this week against the 49ers or next week against the Cowboys. And I feel like the 49ers just match up. Like it's super even. You want to take quarterback edge, Philly. Running back edge, San Fran. O-line edge, Philly. D-line edge, San Fran. Coach edge, San Fran. It's like it's back and forth. The edge, they have different pushes. It's going to
be a great game.
So I'm excited. I'm looking forward to it.
So you are taking the Niners though. If you had to bet your Niners, and I'm going to go with the Eagles. We'll see what happens.
3 is not a big spread, but I would take the Niners like money line. That's how like not confident. It's going to be super close. Like I really do think it could be 23
I will say this. I do think that there is something to the fact that the line opened as I think it was -3 when it opened. And
it hasn't moved.
Dudes, it hasn't moved. And guys now know. And like Nick Sirianni and that Philly, like I just feel like this is like they bring the dog masks back out. Like we're at home. We're 10-1 and we are underdogs by 3. Like it's not like a 1 point or a pick 'em. I feel like Philly's going to come out feeling disrespected. And that's not Seattle. It's not San Francisco's fault. They don't set the lines, but I feel like that's like, it's one of those Philly, it, Jason Kelce and the way those guys play, they're emotional. And like Nick Sirianni's emotionally screaming on the sideline, yelling after games. Like I think that plays into it, that they're going to come out and just, we're the underdogs. All right, back to get the dog mask back out like we did when we had that Super Bowl run. I love Philly in this game.
Yeah, it'll be fascinating to watch. I'm very much looking forward to it. And as I was looking at the scores, I didn't realize, but the last 3 games for Philly have been fewer than 4 points or fewer.
Tight.
And so they've won tight games, and then the game before that was only 7 points. So they've been winning.
They're not blowing people out like they did last year.
No. Only on a couple occasions this year have they, won convincingly. But at the end of the day, they still look amazing. And yeah, I consider them, and we've talked about the last few weeks, I consider them and Kansas City to be the two best teams in the league. And it's just like last year, that was the Super Bowl matchup. It does feel like it's a kind of a repeat situation. It's a weird year for the league in which there hasn't been felt to be as much parity amongst the best that there have been in the past. So that is very interesting. You had something interesting to bring forward
really quick, just to wrap
as we
up.
close it out. I'm looking forward to this.
So this was a tweet I saw from DraftKings, and they got this from a data analyst site. Attendance leaders in the NFL so far this year. Did you see this?
No.
It's attendance leaders by percentage, because obviously different stadiums hold different amounts of people. Like the Bears only hold like 62,000 versus, MetLife is 80,000. You know what I mean? So this is based on percentages. Which team do you think has the number one attendance percentage with 104.5%? So they're over capacity on the year. They're selling standing room tickets throughout this season, and they are at 104.5% capacity.
So this is number one. I'm going with Kansas City.
Kansas City is not even in the top 10. Isn't that crazy? That's why this is why I brought this up, because I was like the same. I'm like, oh man, this one's it is not. They're not even in the top 10.
I'll go with their opponent this week. I'm going to go with the Packers.
The Green Bay Packers. Obviously, they get a lot of love for family nights. Remember, they always talk about that during training camp.
Yeah, and I just feel like people are rejuvenated.
They're not in the top 10. Suck it, Packers fans. You're not even in the top 10.
Pittsburgh always does well, but I just don't feel. I feel like with the Canada stuff, like a lot of people were discouraged. So I'm not gonna. They're definitely not one. I
would have never guessed.
If you say something, I
would have never guessed
Carolina, I riot.
No, Carolina's not in the top 10. I would have never guessed it. It's a good team. It's a good team. Cleveland is at number 9 with 100.6%.
It's a good team. They sell more.
It's a fairly new stadium. Fairly new stadium within the last decade. NFC.
It can't. No, it can't. Okay, never mind. No, I was thinking the Rams for a second.
NFC,
but they're not a good team, so they can't. It can't be them. NFC team with a recently new stadium, and they're a good
big
team.
Sponsor on the stadium. Big sponsor. Big name.
How am I blanking on this? I feel this is
Well, you know why? I would have blanked on too, because there's no reason to think this team would be number one, but they are. You want me to give it to you?
Hold on 1 sec. Is it Minnesota?
No. Good guess though.
Okay, that's all I got then. I can't.
The San Francisco 49ers.
Would they have they have a new stadium recently? How am I blanking on that?
Well, Levi Stadium opened in 2014 and then hosted that Super Bowl in 2015 or 16.
All right, fair enough.
So here's the thing. San Francisco, I would have never guessed it, because they're 60 miles south of San Francisco now. They're in like Silicon Valley. But maybe it's because of the tech money that they just like oversell boxes, or I don't know how, but they're at 104.5% capacity.
No, that's impressive. That is impressive, because I never equate San Francisco. They have a really good fan base. Like
they're a big brand. They're a big brand because
of
Montana and all the winning they had. I mean, they're a big brand. But they just don't seem like a diehard fan base, especially with that stadium is built in the middle of nowhere down in Silicon Valley. It's not even in San Fran anymore. So number one is San Fran. Number 2, this one blew me away. Again, diehard fans, I guess, and I just don't count them. Indianapolis Colts. The Colts have had an up and down year, but they're diehards. I mean, there's nothing else to do in Indy.
About Anthony Richardson, probably, and
but then with him, I guess. But then this
people
one
like
shocked
the mustache on Gardner Minshew.
3 shocked me too, but I guess again it would have to be because of corporate money. And the stadium is incredible. The Rams are at 3.
Yeah.
So the Rams are drawing well in LA. They got to feel good about that.
Like
being
you say,
in the top
that's
3.
got to be so many people buy like business suites.
Yeah.
And it's.
But they got to feel good about that they're drawing, because the Chargers are nowhere near this. Miami Dolphins at 5, Detroit Lions at 6, Chicago Bears at 7, Bengals 8, Browns 9, Broncos 10. And what that tells me is anyone who says to you like Dolphins, Lions, Bears, Bengals, Browns, have over the last 20 years been all crap, right?
Yeah.
But those are diehard fan bases. And I mean, Miami's a part of that. And Lions, Bears, Bengals, Browns, they're in the top 10. These people are going to their games no matter what. And it's just, I saw that and I knew it would blow your mind. It blew my mind.
That is fascinating. Yeah, I clearly was not able to guess that properly.
Chiefs was a great guess. Yeah. Chiefs, because that's probably what I would have said too. They're defending Super Bowl champs 2 times in the last 4 years. Arrowhead's plays always packed, but no. The San Francisco 49ers. Lambeau not in the top 10.
Did you see where Pittsburgh was on this list?
No, it only showed the top 10 on the graphic.
Okay. Yeah, fascinating. Interesting stuff. Well, there you have it. So I guess the Chiefs-Packers game is not going to be well attended this coming week. So nobody worry about that. But
empty seats at Lambeau.
That's right. That's right. Cool. Yeah, no, that was interesting stuff. We have a couple of those like tidbit things that we've got
Friday shows
on the waiting list. So yeah, Friday shows are good. So stay tuned for upcoming Fridays where hopefully we'll be able to provide some of that entertainment, a little bit more analysis, and get a look at this playoff picture that is becoming more and more crystal clear as we enter this final. Man, it's the last quarter of the season's almost here. One more week and we're in the final quarter. Although technically we're just about that. Now that it's an uneven number of games, it's too difficult to put together now. But yeah, so I hope you all enjoyed. Let us know as always if you agree, disagree, anything interesting that comes across your radar. You want us to talk about it on the show. Just tweet at us, X at us, or hit us up on Facebook, YouTube in the comments, all of that good stuff. But yeah, this has been our Friday show, Thursday Night Football recap with some fun commentary there for you. And we will see you back here next week for our Week 13 recap on the Football Lounge.